Hello, Nick Anderson here from the fake news media and well-known enemy of the people, and I am digitally painting my Trump as Gollum cartoon, looking at his precious QAnon ring, and this is the latest madness from the Trump base, which should not at all be surprising since Trump is a conspiracy theorist himself, spews all this nonsense himself. So why should we be surprised that there's more conspiracy nonsense coming out of the Trump crowd? There's all kinds of, whenever I talk to conservatives, I don't even know what conservative means anymore. Trumpism is not conservative. I don't know what it is. It's just a bunch of nonsense. And you point out this nonsense, and they'll say, "Oh, there's nonsense on both sides. It's false equivalence. There's not this much nonsense from the left. There's a little bit, but it's not. There's not this much. There is so much craziness coming out of the right." And these people vote in droves, and they keep electing crazies. They have their own networks, they have their own websites. It's just, I mean, let's face it, Fox News is craziness. And they complain about the mainstream media as if it's crazy. Give me a friggin' break. So, forget the politics for a second. Let's talk about the art. I love drawing cartoons like this that are real simple so that I can just get into the detail of the artwork. I really don't like doing complex drawings because it just takes so long to knock out the line work and the elements that I don't get a chance to enjoy the artistry of it. Some people like that. I do not. So I also prefer the painting part over the line work. And sometime in the near future, I'd like to explore just skipping the line work altogether and just painting my cartoons. I tried that a couple years ago and it didn't really go all that well. It was taking too long. And I tried it both in Corel Painter and in Photoshop, and it was just, I was having trouble getting it to look the way I wanted it to and defining my edges without it taking way too long. And I think it's just because I wasn't used to working that way. So I'm probably going to need to try that again. No, that's too. I'm starting with, that's pretty dark. The nice thing about this is I can always lighten that. That's too light. But, I think what I will do, I'm going to start a new layer here, and I'm going to, I want some texture on his skin. I'm going to do that later. I'm going to just stick with the skin at this point, and I'm going to make it look like Gollum-like skin tone, kind of yellowish, and then I will shade it later. So I'm using an acrylic like brush variant right now. Basically, I just want to lay in some flat color, and then I will shade a little bit later on. Make my brush smaller. That's too small. Takes too long to change that. My computer's heating up. The only problem about using this recording software is it seems to tax my computer, and it does start running the fan a lot. Alright. I'm going to add a little yellowish. Not overwhelmingly. So, the light source is coming from up here. So I'm just going to add some highlights. Give this some shape. A little bit more. And then the obligatory white around the eyes and the mouth from his tanning. I'll come back in and erase some of this later on. Alright. Some shading in here. Notice I'm not using the exact same color. Because color is complex. And if you use the same color and just make it darker, the eye, it just looks too cartoonish, so to speak. So you want to add some complexity. It looks a little bit more real world. Even a little blue. Yeah. I'm going to go back and... So I like to use watercolors for some of my shading because they're translucent. I can lower the opacity of this to make them even more translucent. That way the underlying color comes through. reduce the opacity of this even more, so I want this to be real subtle. So it's kind of shading about half his grotesque body. And then I'm going to build that up a little bit. I just dried that layer, and so now I'm adding a secondary shadow. Okay. No, I don't like that. Don't like that either. Okay. I'm going to come back in and add texture to this later, and I haven't decided what brush I'm going to use. I'm a little indecisive about that. Alright, so let's add some creepy red to these eyes. This brush takes forever to reduce the size. And I want to, oh man, I'm having trouble getting it the right size. There we go. I usually don't draw Trump with his eyes open because he's all squinty, but in this case it just works so much better for him to be looking at the ring wide-eyed that I decided to make an exception. And he needs some shape around the eyes, some shadow around the eyes to define it, so coming back in here to add some detail. Okay, so now I need a new layer for the hair. Go back to my acrylic so I can just... Now the nice thing about acrylic versus watercolor is if I'm painting with watercolor, like I mentioned, it's translucent. But with the acrylic, it's opaque, so I can just paint over what I have and it covers. Saves me having to erase what's underneath. It's not 100% opaque, so I have to paint over it a little bit, a couple times, depending on which brush I'm using and how I have the settings. I don't want 100% opacity, because then it looks unnatural. Man, I'm having fun drawing this one. That hair is looking particularly thin and grotesque today. I want a little bit of scalp showing through, which means I need to erase some of this yellow. Or I need to add some orange down here. so that you can really see that scalp coming through. Gollum doesn't have a lot of hair. And we're not really sure how much Trump has up there either. So, alright. Alright, now I need a little bit more yellow to define this. There we go. And now let's add some complexity to this hair. Need a little bit darker. Oh, I'm on the wrong layer. That'll be okay. I hope. As long as I don't have to go back and undo any of that. I don't like that. It's a little overworked. Some white. Adding some highlights to this. Something I don't like about that, I may have to come back to it. I think because it all sort of comes to a point here. I don't like that. I'm going to have to come back to that. I am going to darken all this in now. Why isn't that showing up? Huh. Don't know why that wasn't showing up on that layer. Sometimes these programs don't make a heck of a lot of sense to me. But it's working here, so I'm just gonna go with it. And I'll just be careful. Because this is the same layer as the skin tone, which means I'm gonna have to not make a mistake. Because I need to not paint into the skin tone. Make this a little bit darker. Alright, now erase. I need to make this a little bit less so I can see the teeth. And we're going to come back and make these teeth a little bit discolored, but right now they need to be whitened. Alright, go back to full opacity. And teeth are going to need to be discolored. Gollum doesn't have white teeth. Alright. I think the hair situation, I think I may have figured it out. I think this, I'm going to, oh, I think I'm going to make, whoops, this more orange. Come on, brush. You're lagging. That's too much, but I'll take it. Alright, I'm going to go up a layer. I think I can live with that. I may come back to that. I don't love it, but I don't hate it. Alright. It's coming together. I still want to get some weird texture on that, but it's coming together. So I need a red tie. Alright, color's a little off. Brush is lagging, a little small. Okay. It's okay. I'm going to come back in here with this brush, my watercolor brush, to make it a little bit more defined color. And so I'm switching back and forth between an acrylic and a watercolor. I'm not sure in the real world I would do that, but in the digital world, it's working out alright. Alright, now I'm going to add a little shadow. Around that. And I think I'm probably going to cut the video here because I still have some stuff to work out and I haven't figured it out yet, and I'll just be sitting here thinking and you'll be bored. So tune in later and see how the cartoon turned out. Thank you very much, and let me find my software so I can turn it off. Thank you.